bring Dr. Deepankar on the stage.
Let me let me introduce quickly the chairman and the speakers of this keynote speaker of this session, technical session. It's sustainable agriculture and water smart industries. So now in this session, we will be focusing on industry and agriculture. And all the three panelists are very distinguished. Dr. Alok Kumar Sikka, who is chairing the session. He is head of International Water Management Institute, India. He is a PhD in civil and environmental engineering with specialization in hydrology and water resource engineering from Utah State University, Logan, Utah. Is a long, about 4 decades experience. He was Deputy Director General in ICAR, member of National Rainford Area Authority, visiting professor in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona University, Oregon State University. So many accolades, many papers, many reports. I am not mentioning all due to shortage of time. Then we have Rita Roy Choudhury, Assistant General Secretary of FICCI, very important organization, Federation of Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries. And she looks after many issues in FICCI and also water. So I occasionally interact with her, so she knows many things about water by now. Is a postgraduate from Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. He looks after many issues in FICCI like energy, water, environment, sustainability, power, etc., and worked in association with many international organizations, plus UNIDO, like USAID, like USEPA, DFID, many. So very experienced. And she will be talking about the industries. And then Vijay Vardhan, he is basically from ITC. He is senior development profession. We thought that we will hear from one industries also how they are working in the water sector. He is a postgraduate in agriculture and he worked extensively in sustainable agriculture and climate smart agriculture and widely experienced. So with this brief introduction, I hand over it to the session to Dr. Alok Kumar Sikka to chair the session. And Sikka sir, I know he is a very tough moderator. Sir, we are slightly behind time. So with that request, I hand over the mic to you. To Sikka sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Saha, for the nice words. And so I think without any further adios, so let's get started. And I think as I see in the list, I'm the first speaker to go. So maybe I'll start sharing my screen. And so let me just share. Can you see the screen now?
Yes, we can see.
All right.
That's all.
Yeah. Okay. So is this visible now?
Yes, it's visible, but not full screen.
Not full screen? I thought it was full. It is full screen here.
Go at the top right hand corner maybe.
No. I mean, it is okay. Let me just see.
But there's a little square button at the right top corner. If you click that, you can go full screen.
Yeah, no, it doesn't go.
No, still at the top.
Further at the top.
No, it's not going. That's the.
But it will work. It will work.
Huh?
It will work. No problem. I don't think there is any problem.
Let me. Yeah. Let me go to the display setting. So I don't think that there is any. So maybe I think is it only half visible or what?
Yeah, it is not. Dr. Sikka, there is a square button right at the top on the right corner. Do you see that?
No,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am.
Go further up, further up. No, further
No,
up.
there is no button in my on my.
No, sir, actually, you need to do the present screen. At the top left, do you find something like present screen?
No, no,
Let
part
me
left is
check it.
only show taskbar. Let me show the.
Display setting.
Mhm.
You will have the slideshow button over here.
No, that's not. I'm not. This is only and slideshow button is there.
No, probably can you go to display setting?
Yeah, display setting I can go.
Or okay, that's different one. Maybe at the bottom it should be. Can you click the three dot at the bottom?
Which where?
At the left
Three
side.
dot. Three
Okay.
dot. Yeah.
See if
Mhm.
it shows. Can you click hide presenter view?
Pardon? No, it's only says hide presentation
Can
view.
you click that? Let's see if it works.
Yeah. Okay. Does it work
Yeah.
now?
Yes, it works.
Okay.
Yeah, this is better.
But still, it is not in the slide view mode.
Maybe you will not be seeing your video, sir, but we are able to see you and also.
Okay, if you are able to see, then it is fine. So
Yes,
only
yes,
thing is
it's
that
fine. It's fine, sir.
no, because the problem is that unless I go into that, there are some other shit. Okay, anyway, I'll go ahead with that. So as Deepanka wanted, I'll be talking about mostly restricting myself to resilient agriculture and looking into the water energy smart practices. And particularly, I'm also focusing together with water on the energy because, as we know, the Indian agriculture is highly water energy intensive, and particularly also so because of the kind of increased dependence on groundwater as a result that 62% of our irrigated agriculture is being contributed from groundwater, and about 20% of energy gets used into that, and majorly in the pumping. So that's the kind of a reason that the way that we have increased also in the terms of the number of the groundwater infrastructures. But as we all know that we are still facing a lower irrigation efficiency, and so perhaps the response to resilient agriculture in the face of the climate change, of course, one important thing is how best we can increase the water use efficiency and water productivity to resilience and also have a more sustaining agriculture. Now, you know that I don't have to perhaps dwell on the climate and the climate change because we know it's already being realized, and the wets are getting wetter and the dries are getting drier, and there are definitely per capita water availability is on the decline, and we have also been witnessing more extreme events, and as a result of all these things, we are also having to face the impact on availability, seasonality, and the quality of the water resources through the country, and of course, especially in our country too. Now, this has got a number of implications for the water resources because you not only have the decreased storages as a result of this thing, but also extreme events on the floods and the droughts. And also, then you have because of the high intensity in storms and few events, you have a less of infiltration and groundwater recharge. And so all these kind of things are particularly leading to the fact that we need to look into water as a main agent and trying to say that how best we can have a more stress on water as an adaptation and mitigation, because that's one of the major tenet which has to be looked into from the policy and the programs domain. Now, in a way, the last year, even this conference was by UNCCD, and this particular report by the Global Climate Adaptation Commission was released, where it shows that if you try and look into the 5 key areas which have a high benefit cost ratio, the ones which we are discussing today on making water resources management more resilient and also improving dryland agriculture. So that both are the ones which are related with agriculture and agriculture water management solutions. So those are the kind of things that we are really be talking about. Now, so if I had to put it in a very simplistic one slide, so naturally we are looking into more sustainable intensification of the agriculture, looking smart land and water management kind of smallholders for better capturing conservation of water, be it across the various scales, be it green water or the blue water, and ultimately in trying to see that how best we can have a more innovative ways of improving water productivity. Now going forward, if you will try and look into that when we are talking about building resilience for climate smart agriculture, there are three basic tenets which we have to look into: increasing productivity and increasing the resilience and adaptation, and wherever possible trying to reduce the global greenhouse emissions. Now water is a key entry point in all these kind of things, and it's basic foundation to move ahead, of course, in addition to other factors that have been listed in terms of the crop production, livestock, and enabling policies, and also supported by the risk transfer mechanism in terms of the crop insurance and other safety nets. So that's the kind of a thing that we have been really looking into. Now, if I have to say so, put it just in one slide, that the ag and water management and the land management solutions which we are looking into, first of our purpose is on the supply side augmentation, and most of our efforts so far has been on the supply side augmentation, be it in situ moisture conservation, surface water, canal water, or groundwater, and improved conveyance when we are talking about the better use of the canal and the water management, and also trying to minimizing the green and blue water losses, because we are trying to see that how best we can convert more and more water into transpiration rather than checking out on the evaporation. And demand side management, I think even Dr. Sankhwa was making a point, and also Dr. Nand, because I think this is an area which really requires a whole lot of kind of emphasis in how best we can have better efficient water use systems and methods of irrigation, supplemental deficit irrigation, crop selections, and so on and so forth, and leading to improved water productivity. Another area which we have been talking about, the conjunctive use of water, but that has been more talked about, but perhaps we haven't worked much directly on that. And then it is not just the water alone or the land management alone will work, but also we have to try and see how it interacts with the genotypes or the varieties of the crop and the agronomic management practices, and the crop diversification, and the multiple uses of water, because water, when it is also in canal, it has used by multiple purposes. So how best we can try and use that to enhance the water productivity, and of course this will require the policy, governance, and the institutional aspects. Now that when we are talking about really building the resilience, it is, and particularly so in our country where 62% of agriculture gets irrigated from groundwater, so naturally we have to try and see that how best we build the resilience, and that really calls for a smart aquifer management. And I think I'm very happy to see that the Atal Bhujal Yojana has already been just talked about, so I'll not dwell upon that, and that's pretty much in the right direction in that. And what we have to be looking into is more targeted recharge measures in terms of the managed aquifer recharge. In this particular slide, what I'm trying to just demonstrate is one of such innovative idea which we have piloted, which I think Dr. Dipankar Saha and some of you know about it, underground transfer of flood water for irrigation, where we are trying to see that in Rampur district, that how best this flood water diverted via canal into this downs below. You can see a series of recharge wells are there in the water body. Abundant water body was kind of rejuvenated and put. So that's the kind of thinking that we have seen, that how best we can not only reduce the impact of the flood if this kind of structures are built in series, but also enhance the water availability during the lean season. So the fact here is, because the groundwater, why I'm emphasizing, because that's one of the area where I think we have to really stress upon smart aquifer management, because it stabilizes, it acts as a buffering action, it is more controlled, and there are relative less storage losses and operation losses. And so we need looking into, together with the participatory groundwater management, investments in managed aquifer reach. And again, at the same time, as Dr. Sankhwa was also making a point in terms of the improving canal water management, we have to say that how best we can also have an adjunct with the micro irrigation or the pressurized irrigation systems, use ICTs, and also evolve some kind of a dialogic tool, because there is a lack of kind of dialogue between the canal management and the on-farm water management. So how best we can try and bring that together, and also in that particular direction, could we have some kind of innovative institutions, like he was talking about one on the water markets, which is pretty much of course there, but not so much in an organized manner, and public-private partnership, farmer producer organizations and stuff like that. So now here, what in IMI we have been trying to say is that so there is a large scope for increasing water productivity in India. This is one of the piece of work which my colleague did on the left-hand side of the screen. And so very recently, right now also, we have been working in Maharashtra along with the Indian Council of Agriculture Research in trying to see that in a canal system in Sina in Ahmednagar, we have seen that when we have brought a concept of what we call it economic water productivity, and also introduced a concept of water influence zone, means it is just not the command area, but it's buffer strip even beyond that, which gets irrigated, and the source is also groundwater, which is getting replenished from the canal. So this is a kind of a way of looking into the conjunctive use of surface and groundwater, but putting it together in a better perspective. So that is something that which we have very recently demonstrated, and the government of Maharashtra Irrigation Department has now again approached us. So we are taking it forward, building some cost curves and trying to look into those kind of way forward. Now, yes, we are always talking about very efficient energy and water use efficient irrigation methods, and through PMKSY and the other schemes, we are advocating more crop per drop and micro irrigation system. This is something that what we have been seeing, that while advocating and promoting these things, it is the on-farm and off-farm capacity building of the farmers which is really a key to the success, because that is somewhere the program is lacking. And that's some of the lacuna which is coming right from selection of the drip irrigation system to irrigation and fertigation scheduling and the maintenance of the system. So in order to overcome these impediments, as I said, that we need to have a better on and off farm capacity building. We need to follow the cluster-based approach. We also need to try and look into that how best we can adjunct it also with the canal irrigation system. There are some places things are taking place in Karnataka and Rajasthan and elsewhere, and the effective subsidy disbursement, because that's the kind of another issue which has to be really looked into, and the microfinance based cooperative, because unless we get into the business model, perhaps things will not still be moving that faster. The one new thinking which is coming into that, we talk about the in situ moisture or soil moisture or groundwater or the surface water. I think it's a time that we need to really think into on a water storage strategy in a more holistic and integrated way, and how best we can do this integrated management of the storages, looking across when we are going from farm scale to the basin scale. So how they are interrelated and how they are integrated and coordinated management has to be really seen. So that's something that in which direction I think even we have just started thinking of. Now, when we talk of building the resilience and adaptation in the agriculture sector, in addition to all this water use efficiency and water productivity and water and demand management, as we have seen, there are extreme events are on the increase, be it the flood and the drought, and even the flood-prone areas are getting visited by the flood and vice versa by the drought. So here in IMI, we have also brought in and the concept, and we have been demonstrating over the last 3-4 years, like building the flood resilience program through index-based flood insurance and post-flood recovery system. And now we have also gone into a product called Biksha, where we are bundling insurance with the climate services and the more resilient and tolerant seed varieties. Similarly, in case of the drought, we need to try and look into on a regular basis the drought monitoring and linking that with the drought contingency planning and the management, which you can see on the right hand side that we are working together with the Indian Council of Agriculture Research. Now, this is in the next few slides, I'll be just taking you through the approach which CCAF from the ICR and IMI, we are bringing it together, and I'm sure that some of these things, when Vijay is there from ITC, may also be talking about that. This is the kind of a framework we have developed for scaling out and preparing this climate smart agriculture, starting from technology identification, risk characterization, and evidences for their for this thing, that what works and what does not work, and how best we can do the scaling out. So I would not like to go into the details and the read into that thing. The idea here is that we are having a stakeholder consultation in trying to see that what are the interventions, how to prioritize them. After they are prioritized, then you try to put them into various performance indices. You try to prioritize that, and this is in a kind of an approach which we have come up with, that how best, taking the stakeholders viewpoint, we do the prioritization of the interventions. And once that thing has been done, we try and develop the complete plan. Like this is an example, we have done it for Adilabad district. And again, we try to prioritize the water smart, energy smart, and carbon smart. Here only I'm focusing on more water smart and energy smart. And then we are also trying to see how best we can come up with a convergence matrix, and with the various developmental schemes, what kind of a component and how it could be converged. Because unless that convergence is brought, because convergence is going to be the key mantra in that. The next thing which I would like to talk about, that water we cannot manage unless we try and look into the other sectors, because the decision in water sector very often emanates in energy or the food sectors and their policies, as we will see on the screen, because we have to really look into that, how to realign the food procurement policies and better crop choices. And similarly now the electricity, now because the solar is coming, at how best we can have a more rational use of the solar energy, so that there is no long-term depletion of the groundwater, which is already on the decline at number of places. So the kind of things that we have to really look into. That's why I said that, because the water cannot be looked into in isolation. It has to be looked into in together with the policies and the programs in energy sector, food sector, and other related sectors. So this is one piece of work which I think my colleague Tushar is also going to be speaking from IMI Tata program we have been working on, and where we have precisely demonstrated that, like in the water scarce area in the left hand side of the screen, you will see that when you are looking into this thing, how best we can incentivize the farmer by evacuating the energy back into the grid, and he gets paid for that, so that's the kind of an incentive which is working for him to conserve the groundwater. So that's the case in the northwestern part of the country, and which is pretty much now in the news. And of course it has also become as a component C of the Kusum. And on the right hand side, on a contrasting situation in Bihar, where we are advocating the use of the groundwater through solar irrigation service providers, so that it becomes more accessible, water becomes accessible, and the irrigation cost becomes cheaper. And at the same time, we try and organize the youth to become the solar irrigation service providers. This is something which I think Mr. Nandakumar was talking about, the Pani Bachao Paisa Kamao. So IMI is working together with the World Bank and TERI on that. This is a direct cash transfer, what we call DBTE. And so in this particular schemes, right now IMI, we have been looking into the 6 feeders. They are in Jalandhar and Hoshiarpur districts, as I said, together with the World Bank. And the idea there is that how it works is that the farmers are enrolled and they get incentive of ₹4 for each unit they save. Beyond a certain, there is certain threshold level has been fixed up for allocation of electricity to them per month. And if they use less than that, they get incentivized at the rate of ₹4. And if they use more than that, there is no penalty on that. So what we have been observing now over a year and a half, that there has been reduced irrigation hours. So, and without any negative impact on the yield penalty, there has been reduction in the feeder level energy consumption, and But we also have been trying to see, and also it is being worked upon, that how best we can integrate this thing with promoting more efficient water use technologies and raise awareness about this thing, and also together with water and energy saving schemes. So like alternate wetting and drying, micro irrigation, and so here you will see on the right hand side that how much energy has been saved, and that has been, they have been incentivized. So savings in August to October has been more than what is there in the June to August, and which is quite understandable, but still there is a saving of energy. So that's one way, as he was telling, and of course then another one which he was talking about, the Pani Bachao and then the Meri Virasat. Now my last slide, I would just like to say that we have been examining all the water related adaptation responses, my colleague Aditi, through a meta review for IPCC, and what we have seen is majority of the responses, 82%, are water related, and most of them are in Asia and Africa, and about a quarter of them, they lack any, they only have the better measures of effectiveness, otherwise majority are not having those kind of things, and 80% of them are reported to be related advanced responses are on water related adaptation. Finally, we will be happy to see that majority of them are on water management related or the agronomic responses. So to leave you with the parting thought, that what we feel is, what I really feel is that there is now a need to have a internalize how best we can internalize the water in climate change adaptation, and also bring in those climate change scenarios in the design and operation of water management systems, and also try to look into, as I said earlier, enhancing the storages, but also the integrated storage in a very farm. It is not that only you have big dams, but you can have it across all the types and the scales. And in order to build the resilience, we need to give more emphasis also to demand side management, as and in addition to the supply side management, which we have been working upon. So again, as I said, groundwater being a key source in our country, so we have to look into the smart and participatory aquifer management, and we need to follow the nexus approach to resolve this issue of water, energy, food, again with the climate nexus. And incentivization policies are really required in saving water and energy. And as I said earlier, the solar energy is one such thing, both for the climate smart, both from the adapt resilience and from the mitigation point of view. But without convergence of the programs across water, energy, and food sectors, perhaps we just can't. So that's, convergence is really becoming a key mantra. And for all these things also, it's equally important to have a capacity of the institutions and the organizations really built up. So thank you very much. So this is what I thought I'll like to share with you. Hello.
Yes.
Yes, Dipankar. So
Yeah.
I think
So-
questions we are taking after all the presentations, right?
Yeah. Yes. Next
Okay.
presentation may start.
So next, then I think I would like to invite Madam Rita Roy Chaudhary from FICCI, and who will be talking about water conservation and water related things, particularly the government and the industry initiatives. So over to you, Madam Chaudhary.
Ma'am, you're on mute, ma'am. Rita, ma'am. Can you please unmute yourself?
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Audible.
So thank you, Dr. Sikka, for that very, very insightful and intensive presentation. I can assure you my presentation is very simple and I'll be very quick. But first and foremost, before I put up my slides, I would like to thank PNP for inviting me to speak at this conference. It's a very, very interesting event, I must say, and with very interesting panels. So from I will actually give a brief overview of of how industry is looking at sustainable water management. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, it's visible. Maybe if you
Yes,
can
ma'am.
go on the view mode,
Yes.
slide mode.
Yes, now?
Perfect.
Yeah,
Is this full screen?
it's full screen. Perfect.
Okay. So I would just like to give a brief overview of industry's initiatives in water. Firstly, I'd like to introduce the FICCI Water Mission. We launched the FICCI Water Mission in 2011, primarily to focus on policy advocacy for water use efficiency in industry and to provide thought leadership in the area of sustainable water management. Then we also instituted the annual FICCI Water Awards in 2011 because we believed that recognizing exemplary contribution that industry is making in sustainable water management needs to be, not just recognized, but it needs to be also communicated. Subsequently, we launched the India Industry Water Conclave and Awards. So the awards are held under the India Industry Water Conclave every year. And the next one is scheduled on January 12, 2021. Primarily, the water mission's focus areas have been in industrial water use efficiency, in PPP in urban wastewater management, and in corporate water stewardship. But FICCI as a whole also has a focus on sustainable water management in agriculture. We do that both under the FICCI Water Mission and the FICCI Agriculture Departments. And the FICCI Resource Conservation and Management Wing actually provides different services on water. It conducts regular water audits for industry in India and has actually branched out its work also in Africa in both water training, audit, and treatment programs. This slide, although the data is old, but just to sort of bring the point that industry's contribution to freshwater use, freshwater withdrawal is very low in the overall context, where we see the use between agriculture, domestic, and industry. So, in terms of the overall water use, it's a very, very small proportion. The strategies that industry is adopting are basically, and when I say industry, I mean the user industry on the one hand, but I also will talk a bit about what the private water sector is doing in India. So we see water use efficiency by industry, particularly the initiatives around what they do within the fence to comply and to go beyond compliance for their own business operations. Secondly, we see industry engagement in also innovations on water technology. And thirdly, what they do beyond the fence in terms of water conservation measures and water augmentation. So within the fence, primarily as industry in India is taking initiatives, it sees water conservation and water use efficiency as imperatives for business sustainability and business continuity. So we are seeing almost industry across the board in different sectors taking measures because they realize that water is absolutely an imperative for their business sustainability. And like what Dr. Sikka mentioned, it's about business resilience, building business resilience. So we are seeing different kinds of measures in terms of reduction of specific water consumption, metering and monitoring, water saving devices and equipment that are being used. Wastewater treatment is being done through ETPs, wastewater recycling systems, and different technological applications for reuse of municipal wastewater in industry is also being looked at. Finally, we also see that a lot of industries are bringing about transparency measures in the way that they use water, conducting water audits, and also doing voluntary measures, disclosures. So some of the examples of water use efficiency measures in industry that I'd just like to quickly mention. Before that, just to say that water use efficiency is not seen just as a matter of using less water, but also towards careful management of water supply sources, use of the water saving technologies, reducing the excessive demand, and recycling and reuse of wastewater. So the examples that we come across through the FICCI Water Awards process is immense and eye-opening in terms of the diverse nature of interventions that industry is undertaking today in various sectors and really trying to move beyond just mere compliance. So there are, of course, examples of wastewater treatment plants that are helping industry in water use efficiency measures. We see various examples across sectors. I've mentioned some of the names here that are really leading the pack in that sense in those sectors. So we have companies like Arvind Limited, Asian Paints, Build Graphic, Chemplast, Sanmar, ITC Moria, JSW Steel, Kirloskar Engines, Sterlite Copper. You know, these are all different sectors, but these are the ones who are really demonstrating real stewardship within the fence. Then there is, of course, wastewater recycling, water meters and other technologies that are being used for reducing leakages. We also see examples of ZLD in some of the companies, although ZLD is something which has been a little it has been a pain point for industry because of the the cost issue, the implementation of ZLD. There are issues around this, but we also see certain examples around that. Then reuse of grey water, desalination is being done by some of the companies. There's of course conservation audits and benchmarking. So various examples that we see, including rainwater harvesting measures by many of these companies. So some of the examples, continuing from the previous slide, if we see that in the case of Arvind Limited in the textile sector, they've been able to reduce water consumption per meter of fabric by 30 to 35% over 5 years. That is a substantial reduction, and they are using 95% less water during their denim dyeing process today. Also, they're recycling 100% of their wastewater. So these are really some of the exemplary examples that we have we have come across through the FICCI Water Awards nominations that come every year. In the chemicals and Asian Paints, for instance, they have implemented ZLD, and they have seen a reduction in the effluent. 100% of water is recycled and reused. Reduction in 55% of specific industrial wastewater generation. So again, this is again a very good example in the chemical sector. Pulp and paper, Build Graphic is also undertaking the measures and reduction of freshwater consumption. And from the hospitality sector, we see ITC Moria has been exemplary in the way they have been able to reduce their water consumption. So some of the technological innovations also that we are seeing that industry is either applying or it's doing its own technology innovation. There have been various types of technological innovations, and we are seeing these applications across sectors in textile and pulp and paper, chemicals, hospitality, oil and gas, beverages, cement, agro-based industries. So the kind of technological innovations that are being applied actually cuts across various sectors. And we are seeing these applications in industry, and there are some leading companies in this water technology sector that are also sort of innovating continuously. In agriculture, of course, we know that agriculture and industrial sector are very deeply interlinked from an economic perspective and development perspective. Expansion in both sectors is interdependent. And wastewater reuse can be really an excellent example in terms of the agriculture industry nexus. As agriculture is really the largest consumer of water, it becomes really imperative for industry to also look at how it can augment the efforts towards water use efficiency in agriculture. So we are also seeing examples of how wastewater is being reused. This is something that has a huge potential in the country, and we need a mechanism for incentivizing more and more wastewater reuse and with the right kind of standards and monitoring and technologies in place. So FICCI and FICCI Water Mission, as I mentioned earlier, we do promote thought leadership around sustainable water management in agriculture. And we believe that this is going to be one of the most important areas for intervention from a policy and a practice perspective, because if we do not address the water use efficiency or water conservation in agriculture, I don't think we can go very far in addressing the larger water problem for India, water challenge for India. We also released a good practice compendium for sustainable water management in agriculture. It carries very good examples, and I'd urge all of you to, it is available on the FICCI website to see this. And we're also seeing that corporates are aligning their CSR initiatives and other programs towards sustainable use of water in agriculture through different technology interventions, drip irrigation, solar water pumps, something which Dr. Sikka also mentioned is being looked at. The other part that I mentioned in terms of the private sector engagement in water, we are seeing that there is a private sector in India that is involved in both industrial and municipal water. However, we really need to expand this market and bring more private sector in the water sector. So it's very important that there are business models, there is a policy framework to incentivize more private sector engagement in water. Today, we are seeing that private sector is engaged in STP, ETP, ZLD, in various kinds of projects on desalination, reclamation, sludge treatment, etc. And there are different kinds of models that are in place, for EPC, for construction, renovation, etc., through DBO, BOOT, BOT, PPP models. And there are some leading examples of companies who are really working in this space as the private water sector, which handholds, the public sector in and the industry in some of these initiatives. So some case studies of good PPP models also that we've come across. The Nagpur water and wastewater model is a very well-known one, where there has been a PPP between Vishwaraj Infrastructure and the Nagpur Municipal Corporation. So that is one model which has been on a BOT basis. The Tirupur Area Development Project is another example where ILNFS and the New Tirupur Area Development Corporation have worked together. The Alandur Sewerage Project is another one. And then we also have the Salt Lake water supply and sewage disposal system. So these are some of the examples of PPP models, but this is a sector where many, many more PPP models can come up, both in the water and sanitation space that private sector can engage further. Beyond the fence, of course, what is, there are again a variety of measures that we are seeing, and it is not just industries realizing that it is not just about their own water use, but how they can help to help the communities and the areas in which they operate become sustainable from a water perspective. So we are seeing that in the incentives beyond the fence by corporates are not just in terms of how they manage their own sustainability footprint, but also how they use common natural resources more responsibly. So different kinds of initiatives, again, we see beyond the fence that industry is engaged in, and including, doing a lot of awareness generation and capacity building. So these are some of the types of interventions they're doing around water conservation, and we again have excellent examples of companies who are undertaking some of these measures which are beyond the fence. There are many more such examples that FICCI has captured through the Water Awards process, but we also see that there are companies across the sectors, and even organizations like the National Stock Exchange, HSBC, are also undertaking a lot of corporate water stewardship measures. Again, a few specific examples of some of the companies in terms of what they're doing as far as initiatives beyond the fence are concerned. So we see ITC, which has done water harvesting structures, and it is also, of course, looking at water use efficiency in agriculture and cost-effective technologies to control soil erosion and reduce excessive groundwater withdrawal. Diageo is doing several water replenishment projects, watershed protection and desilting, check dams and dams, access to water and sanitation, rainwater harvesting structures, and also water ATM is something that Diageo has done. HSBC is doing a series of measures around water and sanitation for the urban poor. So there are several, these are only a few examples, but the message here is, and these have all been done in partnership either with communities or other implementing partners. But what we also see is there is an effort to develop sustainable models where industry helps communities on sustainable water management, but also helps build a sustainability sort of approach towards it, so that the community can continue with those initiatives. So we see there are a lot of partnerships at the ground level with the local panchayats, with the communities, with with other partners on the ground. So partnerships are really critical to the success of these corporate water stewardship programs. Finally, I'd just like to quickly say that we really believe wastewater is a very big opportunity for India. So really a market for wastewater is an absolute imperative, because we need to look at the circularity of water. Wastewater can be there for urban reuse, for agriculture reuse, for environmental reuse and industrial reuse. We are seeing some examples around this, but this really needs to be scaled up. So finally, I think talking about the enablers on sustainable water management from an industry perspective, I think there's a need for policy framework and a market for wastewater reuse, both at the national and state levels, because we really need to look at water from a circular economy approach. Awareness about wastewater reuse is going to play an important role in creating this market for wastewater. But it is ultimately not just awareness and policy. I think what is needed is also bankable models for wastewater treatment and reuse. Again, the policy framework has to incentivize these kind of models, for effective PPP models to engage the private sector. And when we talk about industry engagement in other programs like river development, lake rejuvenation or river rejuvenation, wetland programs, water recharge, aquifer management, at the end of the day, it's not just about philanthropy. I think it's at the end of the day, if there can be PPP models or business models where industry can invest in some of these programs and get a return out of it, I think will be a much more sustainable model to look at for the future, rather than just looking at it from a CSR or a philanthropy lens. This sector is again a sector where finance becomes very critical, but many of these models are not bankable. So therefore, channeling sustainable finance will be very important. There is discussion around municipal bonds, blue bonds, etc., and how we can also have some of these instruments applied to the water sector widely will be very important. Technology is, of course, central to all the initiatives that industry undertakes, particularly within the fence. And cost effectiveness of technologies is something that will therefore have to be addressed, whether it's through policy measures or technology cooperation, whatever different measures. Cost effectiveness becomes a very critical factor, and that is not just in the context of large industries. I think MSMEs need a lot of handholding in terms of technology upgradation, but also in terms of having effective models for cluster approach or common infrastructure development for MSMEs in the context of wastewater treatment. And partnerships are obviously absolutely critical to the success of sustainable water management. So I'll just stop here. Thank you very much, and happy to have some discussion going forward.
Thank you very much, Rita. Thanks for a wonderful presentation, and I think we'll sum it up and walking us through right from automation to various pathways of water's efficiency and RRR. So I think then we'll come towards the end, and then we'll take questions, and I'll try and sum it up. So the next we have again from industry, from ITC, Vijay Vardhan. So I think Vijay is not perhaps able to join us on the air meet, but he's using some other platform. So over to you, Vijay, whatever platform you are using. Hello, Vijay, can you hear me?
One second, let me bring in Vijay. I need to inform him. Just give me a minute. All right, please give me some moment. Give me a moment. I'm connecting Vijay. He got disconnected. In the meantime, yes, Vijay is joining back.
Yeah, Vijay, he is there. Hi, Vijay.
Yes, Vijay, you can speak now.
Hi. Hello.
Yes, Vijay, please go ahead. And
Give me 1 second. I'm once again sharing the screen. Just let me connect your audio as well.
Yeah. Can you hear me now? Hello.
Yes, Vijay, you can speak now. Vijay, you can speak now, Vijay.
Yeah. So, is my presentation visible?
No, not yet.
Yes.
It is pretty small one.
Yes, Vijay, you can make it into landscape, and then yes, perfect.
Yeah. I don't.
And also, I request any of the moderators to confirm once Vijay starts his presentation. You can confirm if the voice is audible, because I'm in multiple screen. I wouldn't be able to check that.
No, his voice is audible so far, but the only thing is we are waiting for the screen to.
I don't know what happened. It's slower or what. Yeah. So, shall I start then?
Yes, Vijay, you can start.
Your slide is not
good afternoon,
visible.
everyone. Thank you, Dr. Saha, for this opportunity. And I thank Dr. Sikka, the chairperson of this panel.
Vijay, I'm sorry to interrupt you because the slide is not visible.
Yes, sir. I'll ask him to check it again. Vijay, can you please start your slide again?
I don't know what's happening in there.
Yes, the slide is loading now.
It is there like in a very stamp size thing because I don't know how you.
He's sharing from his mobile. He will make it into landscape now.
It was working till now. I don't know what happened now.
Anyway, that otherwise. Okay, I think otherwise go ahead with.
I think
yes, it's working now. It's perfect now.
Better than before now. Please, I think you can.
No, I'll make it full screen, sir. Not sure. I'll make it full screen. You'll be able to see that.
Now please start, Mr. Vijay. Please start.
Vijay,
Mr. Vijay, you can start now, Vijay.
Okay.
All set.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, my topic, as we discussed with Dr. Saha, is that to talk about the industry's water scenario. More than that, the concerns and also what ITC has done. So, because I am from ITC, I will share the ITC's experience. So, as Ms. Rita Roy Chaudhary has explained in detail, so industry definitely has its own concerns or challenges or interrelations, whatever we can say, with water. Definitely, which are very important for its manufacturing. So the concerns which are picking up nowadays are to start with quantity and quality, because there is a stress almost building up water stress in almost all the catchments of country wherever the industries are cooperating along with other sectors. And the regulations, while they are there, social pressures are also which were there and are increasing. And industry on its own part, definitely water use efficiency, there's a lot of work being done. And wastewater management, to use it back in the operations, that's also an area which again Ms. Rita Rachan has explained in detail with various examples. And the other thing between regulations and somewhere where there is scope to improve is also recycled water release, the ETP thing. Because of regulation, this is becoming an area where industry has to, update and work more. So these are the areas which matter to industry, and they are all one by one becoming a matter of concern. So the point here is, though it's not like that industry is government and there's government who is meant to take care of many things, but still the industry or the industrial cluster, if it's a cluster, are being looked at by various sectors and various stakeholders, and the responsibilities are increasing. So we can't limit our thing of only the what we are doing within compound. And at the same time, there's good CSR work which happens, but good CSR work is okay. But still, we need to see whether we are actually achieving water security. That is what is becoming more and more important. So I come to ITC then, and how we are looking at and what did we do. So ITC, we are a diversified company, and because of our diversification, we have two types of presence across country. One is because of our agri business, we work with agricultural commodities and farmers in India. And at the same time, because of our multiple businesses, we have multiple manufacturing locations spread across country. But the point is, ITC had believed in sustainability, and long back we took a call that we will align our business operations with triple bottom line approach. So because of this, ITC is continuously being retaining its own position as being water positive, carbon positive, and also solid waste recycling positive. So this tells the focus or the thrust on the sustainability aspects. So how did we do, or how are we looking at when we come to water? So in water, there are two types of stakes ITC has. As I explained, because of agriculture, the agriculture's own water concerns are ITC's concerns. So whatever the concerns are for farmers who cultivate the crops which we source are actually ITC's own concerns also. And at the same time, the manufacturing locations. And what is happening is most of the manufacturing locations are increasingly coming under water stress. If you see the catchment area, because of the other competing or other share, people who also share the same resource along with them. So these are the two areas which set the context for ITC and probably for many industries. So to tackle this, so ITC's water stewardship program, this is what we had planned, and the objective, the actual objective is that wherever we are, we want to achieve the status of water for all, today and tomorrow. So there should be water for everyone who are there in the area, not just ITC, today and in future also. That is what we have set as an objective. And when we look at the specific measurable objectives for this, So first thing which obviously we have achieved, which we want to retain is ITC should remain as water positive company, which we need to continue. Then the other thing is the agricultural catchments. We need to drought proof these catchments so that the farmers won't actually be impacted, or actually the negative impacts will be, the magnitude will be reduced because of drought. So this is drought proofing, where we have also technically partnered for the technical support. We have partnered with IWMI, who is developing a framework also for us for this one, and also for the next one, which is to achieve water positive status in the catchment. Means wherever we are present, we want to see that mainly in the manufacturing locations, factory locations, the catchment, the watershed should be water positive, and the demand and supply should be balanced. So these are three measurable specific objectives on which we are working, finally to achieve the objective of water for all, today and tomorrow. So technically, means within compound whatever happens within factory, all those things are there, as ma'am has explained in the earlier presentation also. So many companies do, and ITC also is in its own place, is the actual pioneer or exemplar in many of the industrial water use efficient practices. When we come to the actual whole basin, the area which actually impacts the water, so we need to work on the watershed level. So the technical approaches are two, like one, we have to actually augment or actually make judicious and balanced harvesting and resource utilization. So which is about supply augmentation. And at the same time, we have to manage the demand. So demand, at this stage, we are working on agricultural demand, because within factory or within unit, we work for our own water use efficiency. But at the same time, agriculture is the major consumer when we are outside the fence, beyond the fence. So demand management in agri sector. So this is the two-pronged approach, but supply augmentation and demand management, which we have focused upon. So supply activity-wise, there are four major activities actually. So each one anyhow again has many of those sub-activities. So the first thing, of course, is catchment treatment. Means the area should be actually treated so that the water, rainwater, which is falling in the area, is actually captured within the area, and it doesn't run away fast by taking away the topsoil. So this is a conventional watershed approach which we have adopted. The second thing is, after we do catchment treatment, let there be water harvesting structures. Because without catchment treatment, what happens is these structures, check dam, tanks, irrigation tanks, pump pond, whatever, if we don't do this, they tend to get silted up. So it's a simple technical reason why anyone should do catchment treatment first. But in ITC, we also, because of our last 2 decades experience, what we have understood is actually that there is increasing need for groundwater recharge to be actually focused. And also there is a reason for concentration to be put upon biodiversity conservation also. So groundwater recharge, the major reason is that because of climate change, as we all know, the rainfall patterns are changing. So we do receive high intensity rainfall in very less number of days. So the windows is going down for water to actually get recharged. So to do this, we have to actually have additional activities which will enhance recharge. So we have with the knowledge we also have gained over this 2 decades, and also what we understood from agencies like IWMI, Aquadam is one another partner. So people who are specialists in geohydrology have told us the importance of groundwater recharge. So managed aquifer recharge is what we have focused upon. So the first 2 activities are conventional watershed, but we have brought in this additional layer of focusing on groundwater recharge. The other is biodiversity conservation or restoring commons. So it's again very simple. It is actually imitating nature-based solution, which is about if you increase trees, the native trees mainly. So the biomass holds the rainwater, so that rainwater doesn't flow away. So the last photo, if you see the top one, simple depiction is that if rain is there, the whole rain will flow away. It will also take topsoil. The bottom is the impact when we have done work. So in this case, the rainwater actually is held back, and it gradually percolates into the soil. So these things, what happens, the post-monsoon flows, means after monsoon, the water which flows in the rivers is actually improved when groundwater is improving and when the catchment is holding more water. So this is what we have focused on, supply side augmentation. And demand, as I said, means when we started at least 20 years back, we never thought of this, but this is an area which has increasingly means come into picture. Like this is an area, only area by which we can balance water, means make the watershed water positive. Otherwise, the gap can never be filled, whatever amount of supply side augmentation we do. So we did take up large scale work on demand management by also focusing on the major crops of the area. And for us, the main crops which we are working are paddy, wheat, sugarcane, banana, and many other horticulture crops. So what we do in an area, the major principal crops which consume the highest quantity of water, we focus on them to actually demonstrate and then help farmers to adopt the water use efficient practices, which while saving water also improves the productivity. Otherwise, there is no reason why farmers should also adopt. Why we say that what agriculture is consuming more water and water has to be saved. But the point is there should be also be a reason for a farmer actually to adopt this. So these are the practices. The practice we promote are the ones which actually help farmer in improving the crop income also, income from crop, apart from saving water. So this is a major area, and if we see the numbers here, see demand management which we started just 3 years back, each year the potential, the area which is under practice is actually saving something around 135 million cubic meters. But till date, the whole 20 years the work we have done, the water we could store is 38 million cubic meters. So the potential of demand is very clearly coming out if we see this. And this is an area where everyone need to focus, and we obviously are focusing on. So while this concept, how we are approaching is there, I thought of sharing quickly one case study of a factory location, which will give the understanding of how all these things are brought together. So this is God River, which is in Maharashtra, flowing in Pune and Ahmednagar districts. So this river actually is where, means if you see the map at the bottom, there's a green spot, that is the dam, which is Chinchani Dam, also called as God Dam. So this dam actually supplies water to MIDC, Maharashtra Industrial Development Cluster, MIDC Ranjangaon, where ITC has 2 factories. So when we thought, means in line with our objective of water for all the co-dependents should have water positive status. So when we have delineated, we understood the whole God basin is our co-dependent, because we get water from this dam, and all the other people who are there in this catchment, they are our co-dependent. So all of us should have water positive status. So this was a classic case we realized when we actually started this delineation as per the co-dependent boundary. So then we got a study done, which was done for 1.5 years by CII. There is a special project department in CII. Along with them, Aquarium also was part of the study. So both of them had done the study, and the broadly what is found out is that this is the blue one. If you see, leaving the blue one, the other colored ones are 5 catchments, sub-catchments, and all the 5, there are 5 dams here. So these 5 dams are just at the foothills of Western Ghats. So they receive around 3,000 to 3,200 mm rainfall. And what they do actually, they store water and then they gradually release after the monsoon to the below dam, the God Dam at the bottom, the green color spot. So these upper dams are very important for the water security, is one point that has come up. But these dams are getting silted up because the catchment is degraded, forests or fringe areas are, the greenery is depleting in fringe areas. So these dams have to be protected. And the other thing is, this whole basin, if we see, is actually water balance when it is done, it is positive. when we see the annual situation. But if we actually see the post monsoon, after monsoon, what is the water balance, that 6 month thing, it is actually negative. So why it is? Because this is something which happens in almost all the river basins of India. That we see that there is flood or water runoff, huge floods, everything happening during the monsoon season. And post monsoon season, actually there is water shortage. So this obviously is like it tells us that you should store or hold back more water within the basin. So post monsoon it is negative. So we have to actually tackle this particular issue. And agriculture is 88% of the water is consumed by agriculture. Again, sugarcane is something which is the major consumer within that. So the recommendations that the study has given, the broad ones are that we should actually do catchment treatment in the upper dam catchments, so that the water flowing into the dam is actually, when the silt comes down, silt load comes down, and dam longevity, dam storage is improved. And also the water flowing will also improve in post monsoon. If the forest cover and green cover improves, so the water flowing into dam post monsoon improves. The second one is about groundwater recharge. There is a huge potential of around 133 million cubic meter gap between the original storage, the potential storage, and the actual storage. So this gap can be used, send more water into the ground rather than storing it on the surface alone. The third, of course, is working on demand side. So these three were major recommendations. And what we have done, we partnered with departments like forest for improving forest cover and for fringe area development. We are working with them. We partnered with irrigation department and with sugar mills to actually promote water use efficiency. And the knowledge is actually coming from Vasant Dada Sugar Institute, who helps us in the technical part of practices to be promoted. So by doing all this, if we see, actually we have already achieved somewhere around 90 million cubic meter storage or saving. But we also need to actually fill that gap in the post monsoon, which we are very close with. So this case of Gourd explains us that there is a factory gets water. So when everyone's water is secured, then ITC will also be secured. That's how we look at, though ITC is minuscule in the whole water requirement. But we have still taken up this, and this is how we are working in almost all our manufacturing locations, to see the codependence and also do the water balance, and then work to make the water balance positive today and also with future scenarios. So this is an example which I thought will give an understanding of how we are doing. And as I said, so it's not, many industries are doing a lot of work, but it's not about confining ourselves to actually doing a good water harvesting body. It is actually a concept of how everyone will get water. Sometimes water harvesting may not be required at all, only demand may be required. So we should focus on that. This is what we have understood, or we have picked up from our experience, and this is how we are moving. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vijay, for an excellent presentation. I think, Dr. Saha, what do you think that we have time for further discussion? Or
Actually, in fact, we are behind schedule.
Okay.
And running short of time, so it will be wonderful if this session can be with some concluding remark and
Okay.
within a couple of minutes, and we can switch over to the next session 4.
Okay, so thank you very much. So I'll not take much of a time. I think I must say that both Rita and Vijay, you had made an excellent presentation, and both have given a pretty good industry perspective in terms of water stewardships and various water related initiatives. And if I can say, of course, moving like from FICCI, what Rita has mentioned, of course, merely that the industry, I do agree, that's not now looking onto just for merely on doing the compliance, but also go much beyond that. And so that's a very encouraging thing, and that's what really is happening. And so that is something. And of course, she spoke about the business models, and which I think in my presentation also I highlighted that yes, there is a need for more business models, because perhaps the government alone, you just can't keep on doing everywhere. So it has to be seen that how best we can come up with more business model in trying to have a more better and increase water use efficiency across various sectors, be it agriculture or be it industry. And the other one that you talk also about this circular economy and triple R, that's resource recovery and reuse. And of course, wastewater, we also never consider it as a wasted resource, but it's a very useful resource. And I think some initiatives are already underway, perhaps in Maharashtra, in trying to see the market for the wastewater use. And also it has been happening at other places. But yes, in a more organized manner, there is perhaps that's a good area to try and take it forward. Now, if I look at what ITC, yes, I know that the ITC, what Vijay has presented, I know quite a lot in detail about their work, and we are working, IMI is working together with them, and we have a long association with them. And as he very rightly mentioned, that they are moving beyond even watershed and going into watershed plus or plus or whatever the way you try and do that, and trying to build the resilience and adaptive capacity, even not just only through this thing, and also giving after it more focus on managed aquifer recharge. As I also spoke in my presentation, and I think Dipankar would agree that building resilience, of course, comes pretty much more also from the groundwater. So that's area where I think they have started, and that's really one thing which we need to push it in a more targeted approach, along with the participatory groundwater management initiatives. And he also mentioned about their focus on the demand side management. Yes, that is something which is really very, very important. And also, as he has mentioned about in the Gourd Basin, their efforts in trying to see that how they have been able to reduce the water use in various crops, particularly in the sugar cane belt in that area, or maybe elsewhere on the rice. So those are the kind of really, and finally, the idea of ITC in drought proofing agriculture and also coming up with the water security for their industry catchment or the factory catchments and agri catchments both. So I think those are the kind of a thing that we are looking in a very, very concentrated manner. And so I could also see that quite a lot of parallels and commonality between what from FICCI, Rita, you mentioned, and also what Vijay has presented. I know, and it's quite obvious also because both come from the same system. So definitely it's worth appreciating that, yes, the corporate is pretty much into this water stewardship. So I think I'll leave it over here by thanking both the speakers for their wonderful presentation. And over to you, Dipankar.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Sikka, for chairing the session. Rita Rajani for wonderful presentation of industry's concern, and Mr. Vijay of ITC's work. In fact, ITC's work is discussed in many forums. Many of the industries are doing wonderful work. ITC is one of them. So it's good that they have presented their case, and it's a insightful discussion on the agriculture and industry and how they think water. You know, there are many researchers in this, many academicians, many professionals, many policymakers. So the basic intention is to have an interaction and cross-cutting dialogue and understanding. So thank you again, all the three panelists. So we'll quickly switch over to the technical session 4. So may I request to switch it over to technical session 4. Sir, thank you again. Dr. Sikka, Madam Rita Rai Chaudhary, Mr. Vijay. बहुत धन्यवाद आप तीनों को.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.